journey. So my journey started back in Vietnam when I was 8 years old. One summer day, my mom was telling us that we were going on a field trip. I got so excited because back then we hardly ever get to go anywhere. Early that morning I woke up, I put on my favorite outfits and my favorite red shoes that I got for my last birthday. And on our way, we got to take a ferry to go across the river. We took a bus and we went through a couple of villages to meet up with people that we knew. It was so much fun at the beginning. And then I became tired and whiny, and I asked my mom, "Are we there yet?" And the universal, timeless, typical mom's answer was, "Almost." Well, little did I know, we had to walk another 5 miles on a sandy beach to get to our destination. By the time we got there, the sun has gone down, and I was exhausted. I didn't realize I lost my favorite red shoes. There at the beach, we met up with even more people. There was about 40 of us, mostly women and children. And there was a woman there who was the leader of the group. She instructed us to go hide behind the bushes and keep quiet. I was so tempted to ask someone, how did my fun field trip turn into this nerve-wracking adventure? But I didn't because I was too scared. As the night got dark, we saw flashing of lights from the sea. And the woman flashed back, and she kept flashing until minutes later, a boat came on shore, and she commanded us to hurry toward the boat as fast as we can. Once people start running, it was chaotic. Moms calling out for their kids, kids crying for their parents. I was like a deer in the headlights. I froze. I froze until I heard my mom's voice telling me and my sisters to hurry toward the boat and go into the water as deep as we can. Why? Because there's going to be adults there who's going to help us onto the boat. You see, my mom was too preoccupied to help us. She was carrying my 3-month-old baby sister in one arm and my 2-year-old baby brother in the other arms. So we get into the water. The water was freezing cold as we stood there waiting for the adults to come help us. Some of the older kids, including me, decided that we're going to swim toward the boat ourselves. Once they thought everyone was on board, the captain of the boat spotted a child struggling in the water. He jumped down quickly and was able to grab her hand in time. Once on the boat, that child was shivering uncontrollably. Her mother didn't know whether her child would make it through the night. That child was me. The captain of the boat was my dad. And this is the story how we escaped Vietnam in 1978. After Vietnam War, hundreds and thousands of Vietnamese boat people lost their lives doing the same journey that we took. We were among the lucky survivors that made it to a refugee camp. It took a leap of faith, not only to be able to leave the beach that night, but also to attempt the escape as a whole family. You see, had we been caught by the communists, they probably would spare the lives of the women and the children. But for the men, especially my dad, who was the captain of the boat, would be executed to set example for others who considered fleeing. Miraculously, my whole family, including my fragile 3-month-old baby sister, survived the escape and survived the long 7 days at sea. Once we were at the refugee camp, my parents then had new worries. They were worried about the uncertainty of our future. The way the process works is that each family submit an application to the United Nations indicating our first, second, and third choice of country for resettlement. My dad would have been ecstatic if we got accepted by any other country to start our new lives. But my mom has relatives in the US, and she would have been devastated if we didn't get to reunite with them in America. But as an 8-year-old child, I did not mind the life of refugee camp. Each family was issued 1 or 2 bunk beds in a military-like barrack. I mean, what can be more fun than living a few feet from your best friend on the next bunk bed, right? Every night was like slumber party. Every day, food was given to us. I looked forward to a full bowl of rice and fatty pork cooked in barrels that could feed the whole village. There were boxes and boxes of oranges and apples that were handed out freely. And each month, a truck would come by with toys, clothes, and treats for the kids. To me, it was a little life. But many years later, after I volunteered at soup kitchens, food banks, and doing toy drives, I finally made the connection. So that's where all the free stuff came from. So to all of you who have ever made any donation to a charity, thank you. You may not always see it, but you do make a big impact to family in needs, just like mine. After waiting 1 year in refugee camp, my family finally got great news. We got accepted to reunite with my mom's family in the US. I remember my mom was clutching to that letter of acceptance and she cried like no one was watching. It took me a few seconds to realize those were tears of joy. We had been just gifted a second chance at life in America. After a long 17 hours of flight, we landed in San Francisco International Airport. America was as great as I imagined. I was astonished by all the high rises of San Francisco, and my first car ride was going across the beautiful Golden Gate Bridge. I remember we were like going so fast. It was scary but thrilling at the same time. And my first unforgettable meal, can you guess what it was? It was the iconic Happy Meal. It's still my comfort food. I still have a big smile on my face every time I hold that Happy Meal box. So when we first came, my family stayed with my granduncle. Our family of 7 slept in sleeping bags in his living room. And I love waking up to Lucky Charms and milk for breakfast, peanut butter and jelly sandwich for lunch, and most of all, I love watching Tom and Jerry's and the Smurf on TV. I think that's where I first learned my English from. So after 1 month staying with my granduncle, my dad got a job as a dishwasher. And with government subsidized rent, we were able to move out and have a place of our own. I started school in 4th grade, but not with 4th grade curriculum. Because I didn't know any English, I was being put in the back of the classroom and work on my English with a volunteer grandma. I remember the kids, yeah. Sometimes I got made fun of or teased because I didn't speak the language and none of them spoke mine. I think at the time, my family was the only Vietnamese family in the area, besides my relatives. I remember one day, my dad met a stranger Vietnamese guy, and he was so happy that he brought the guy home for dinner. Over the years, my dad had held many labor-intensive jobs, but he would always come home in time for dinner with a big smile on his face. He would still have a lot of energy to ask us how our day was. He wants to know what we did and what we learned in school. I think that was his way of encouraging us to stay in school, focus in school. He would often remind us that nothing would make him happier than to see all of us go to college. None of us have the heart to disappoint him. No matter what challenges we face, we thought of the sacrifices that he made for us and the hopes and the dreams that he had for us. All of us graduated from college. My dad is a humble man, but often I would hear him brag to his friends about how proud he was of his kids. And among the kids we have a doctor, a lobbyist, a VP at Salesforce. And I like to think that he's proud with the rest of us too. In the next chapter of my life, I met my husband right after college. We got married 2 years after that. He's a loving, caring person and very much a family man. I learned that he too escaped from Vietnam, but by himself without his family. I think he was a brave man, just like my dad. In the year 2000, when I was pregnant with my first son, I heard about the reunification policy, where it allowed U.S. citizens to sponsor their siblings to the U.S. I encouraged him to apply because I knew how important family was to him. But he hesitated. He hesitated because he was worried that we wouldn't be able to support them financially when they came. But I reassured him it'd probably take at least 10 years before they review the application. So we'll figure it out when we cross that bridge. Well, exactly 10 years later, in 2010, we got news that all his 3 siblings got accepted to come to the U.S. with their families, but all at the same time. I was thrilled for them, but I was nervous as well. Initially, we planned to rent a house for them, but then we figured we couldn't afford the rent for a house big enough for the 3 families. So we invited them to stay with us until they find stable jobs and be able to support themselves. I wanted to help them the way my granduncle helped us when we first came. My family of 4, living with 3 other families, was like having a family gathering at home all the time. But the great thing was they did all the cooking and cleaning for me. After dinner, I would sit down with 8 kids, 2 of my own, to help them with their homework. I even downloaded extra material to help them catch up in school. I wanted to be that volunteer grandma who helped me with my English when I was in 4th grade. And I kept thinking, what else could I do to help them ease their struggles as others have helped me in the past? So I showed up at their school activities, I attended their parent-teacher conferences, and I even volunteered in their classroom to observe their learning. I was busy. I felt like a mother of 8 kids. But I was proud because I could handle more kids than the Brady Bunch. During the weekends, we would venture out to the beach to have picnics. We would go to the zoo, we would visit museums. We volunteered at food banks together. And what I love most is taking them to different restaurants for them to try different foods. I wanted to expose them to the different American experiences. Well, I have to admit, living with 3 other families, 12 others, wasn't always fun or easy. I was so consumed with trying to give them the best entry into the American life and culture that sometimes I often forget about my kids need me too. It took entire family a lot of learning, adjustment, and sacrifices, but we made it work. We were able to sponsor the 3 families for a year and a half. By the time they moved out, all the adults had jobs, all the kids were ready for regular classes in school. It's been 9 years now since they first came to America. In 9 years, we have 3 kids that graduated from college. They are now working for Lockheed, Raytheon, and UCI Hospital. I'm so proud of these kids. I feel like their accomplishments are mine as well, and now I know how my dad felt. Last year, my family and I made a trip back to Vietnam. To my surprise, my oldest son wanted to see where I grew up and where our family came from. I think it was because of the 3 families that got him to love our culture, wanted to learn our language, and wanted to see more of Vietnam. It was an emotional trip for me, because not only because I was so proud of my son, how mature he was, but also when I was giving him the tour and sharing with him our family story, it took me down memory lane. I was standing right there in front of the house when my mom said that we were going on a field trip. And down the street was the river where we took the ferry to cross. It has been a long journey for me, but I made it back full circle, standing on the very same soil where it started 40 years ago. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my families, and I'm proud of their accomplishment. I'm proud that I was able to give back, and I appreciate all the valuable life lessons learned that my kids have learned from us sponsoring the family. I'm grateful for all the sacrifices that my parent had made for me. And I'm grateful for America to give us a second chance and for the open arms. And I only hope that I will be able to continue to give back as much as I have received through the kindness of others throughout my journey. Thank you.